Crypto Artathon. This is the final session for the day and the final session of the Crypto Artathon. And we have the good graces of having the entire group of 105 Collective, which contains Sparrow, Ben, Gareth, Karen, Sparrow, again, Stena, and they are going to talk about stuff, art, possibly their art. No plan really. I'm just going to sit back and watch and listen to the fireworks. Take it away, 105 Collective.
Yeah. Hello?
Hello. That
This
wasn't
is
at all
us.
intimidating. You're just going to sit back and watch the fireworks, no expectations there. So thanks for that.
You're welcome. My absolute pleasure.
It's an absolute pleasure for you and an absolute pressure for me.
I think the joy, like I think like these kinds of presentations in this way, to me, it's good to sort of show, like, in my mind, how art is created in that way. When you decide, okay, I really have to make something, and then you sit down and you're basically throwing yourself into the void, and and so I try to create that experience of getting a whole bunch of people on the screen and setting them up to just sort of
Let them
go, and then there's that awkward moment, like for the first minute of like, okay, who's going to say something? And then one person starts saying something, and then it like lets loose this sort of stream, and in an hour you're going to go like, what, it's over? That's what happened yesterday.
How it worked yesterday, right? Yeah.
Well, actually, yesterday, just to add, before I will shut up after this, we actually kind of figured out what we're going to do in halfway through the talk. And then from then on, we just kind of like went just off the rails, completely off the rails. And some people who stuck around enjoyed it. So there you go.
There's no accounting for people.
No, literally and figuratively and metaphysically.
Yes, all those. Right. Well, we have questions to start off with. So, I think that's quite a good way to break the ice. Yeah. So we put a tweet out. I put a tweet out and said, we're doing this talk. If anybody wants to know anything about us or art or life in general, even, send us the questions. So the first question was, what is the actual project that 105 is working on right now? The Genesis project, which I think is a cool term for our project. So that's the first question. Go.
It terrifies the life out of me that when I laugh ironically, a big yellow thing comes around my box like I'm supposed to say something. I'm now going to be completely silent.
Say something. Yeah, go on.
No, I'm not going to say a thing. I'm going to let Karen talk. She's really good at this sort of thing.
She is actually, yeah.
Are you muted, Karen?
Yeah, that means I have to unmute myself. Okay.
There you go.
Well, all right. I'll talk about. So we came together at the beginning of the pandemic. We all knew each other online, but most of us have never met before. We got together because Sparrow approached me to gather a group of artists in England to apply for the BBC Culture in Quarantine Fund, which they started to get artists to make work in isolation to be consumed by people in isolation, and possibly introducing novel ways of presenting art. And so we got together, and it was an Arts Council partnership. We frantically wrote a grant, we made a website, and therefore we formed a collective, and here we are. And we did not get the grant, but we really liked the premise. So we decided to go ahead and make the project anyway. And it's called More Than Glass, and it will be taking place in CryptoVoxels. It will be a specially built gallery reflecting the theme. And it's all of us responding individually and as a collective to the theme of isolation. And the title is taken from a poem that Gareth will now tell you about.
That was seamless.
Mm.
Uh, almost like we've planned it. Here's one I made earlier. We were just, when we first started talking about this, we were just discussing amongst ourselves, there'd been the name of the 105 and that sort of thing, and what we were going to call the project. We knew it had something to do with isolation. And I think we wanted something that kind of intimated or alluded to both separation and connection. So, and there was also this idea of glass being a good metaphor or symbol for that started. The idea of glass being something that divides, but also allows you to interpenetrate and share and that sort of thing. And from there, discussion kind of snowballed and evolved into discussions of other kinds of glass, like the looking glass and being through the looking glass and hourglasses and time and that sort of thing. So one way or another, glass seemed to be a useful symbol or metaphor or allegory for what we were doing, or at least kind of congregated ideas. And I always love this poem called Snow by Louis MacNeice. This is Louis MacNeice. He's not as well known as he should be. I think he's one of the greatest technical poets of the 20th century. This is Louis MacNeice, Scottish poet, his collected works. The poem is called Snow, and the title, More Than Glass, is a line from that poem. I was going to read you the last stanza if you would like.
Yes, please.
Okay, it's not the whole poem. The whole poem's 3 stanzas long. I'm just going to read you the last stanza. Essentially, the situation is the voice of the poem is sitting in a warm, well-heated lounge with a window, and outside in the garden it's snowing, and there's a vase of beautiful, fulminating, fecund roses in front of the glass. So, last stanza. And the fire flames with a bubbling sound, for world is more spiteful and gay than one supposes. On the tongue, on the eyes, on the ears, in the palms of one's hands, there is more than glass between the snow and the huge roses. I'm not saying anymore because that's brilliant, and what you do is leave a little space afterwards for people to absorb it.
Okay, somebody else talk.
Hey, it's not me.
So, does someone want to talk about how we got the name 105 Collective?
Because that even predates the idea of the project, really.
If I do this, I should probably shut up afterwards, and then I'm done. So it's good. Okay, I've got a mind like a crossword clue, and I think in words and not pictures, which means I've got no idea what I'm doing here, but I do. So apart from the title of the project, apart from calling it More Than Glass, 105 kind of came out of my head as well. And it's because the initials CV kept coming up. CV because the first project was in cryptovoxels, which often shortens to CV. CV for coronavirus, because the coronavirus was the reason we first came together. And CV, of course, for curriculum vitae, for the course of your life. The course of our lives, one way or another, has led us here. So that kind of came up as a recurring theme. And as a good Jungian, and Sparrow is even bigger on young than I am, you should pay attention to coincidence, because that's the universe telling you something. So the fact that CV kept coming up meant that CV was important. And like I said, having a mind like a crossword clue, I come up with 105 because, of course, the Roman numeral for C, or the Roman numeral C is 100, and the Roman numeral for is V. Therefore, the 105, 100, C, 5, V.
Awesome.
Mm.
That's just really, really clever.
And I love what Stina done with the logo as well, incorporating the actual style of cryptovoxels into that. So I just thought that would be a nice way for Stina to talk about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought CV was sort of at the heart of it, really. So I really like that kind of isometric, blocky kind of style that CV has. So that was something I wanted to incorporate in the logo. And Sparrow came up with the idea of having the build block at the end with the patterns in them. So we just thought that that fit quite nicely, and place it on things. You've got that kind of looking through the glass sort of feeling with it as well. So yeah.
It's a really, you know, strong image, the 105. Good everywhere. So the more places we can get it, the more things we do,
The better, I think.
Well, that was one of the other things that we wanted to do with it as well, was trying to keep it sort of grayscale and black and white, because we've all got such different artistic styles that sort of clash. So we tried to keep it so that it will work for future projects as well, and it won't sort of, you know, clash with anything we're doing.
spot on that brief, I think. You did a perfect job.
Okay, which leads into what you just said. So the second question is, what types of projects stroke directions will 105 work on in the future? So we've talked about what we're doing now. What would we like to do in the future?
Well, I know we were keen to maybe sort of onboard, bring new artists in and bring more people in, and perhaps provide a platform for artists that maybe hadn't given crypto art a go yet. Maybe sort of trying to see if we can onboard some new artists through the gallery and through the platform, perhaps by having like a feature room or something along those lines. So those are the kind of projects that we were looking at. Perhaps incorporating something with Sparrow's Crypto School as well, because I know that's been really useful for people who are just coming into the space. So that's the ideas that we're playing with at the moment.
Okay, so I'm going to save the last question
Until later. And I've got some backup questions as well, just in case we run out of things to talk about, which is unlikely.
So
For your individual pieces, for the More Than Glass project, can you talk a little bit about what
the experience, I know that the project is our experiences of working as artists during the lockdown and how that isolation has impacted on us. But what I'm curious about is, how has your process changed, if at all, in that time period versus how you normally created before? If there's any difference, or if it has been. So my experience is it's been pretty much the same as it always was. So I'm interested to hear if you found any difference.
I've got to say, the complete opposite. It's an entirely different experience. I'm very new to this, well, as most people are, because it's a very new thing. But I started like December of last year, and making digital art, crypto art, rare digital art, whatever you want to call it, making the stuff that I make is just a way of kind of energizing myself, and other things as well. But it's almost entirely a way to energize myself. I find it a lot better for my ability to get up and do things and continue to go on and continue with my work and continue with the things I have to do. It's better to create something and allow something to come out of my head than it is to sit on a sofa for an evening. So it was a kind of a way of, apart from self-expression and just teaching myself things, just learning a new thing, which is always good fun. Apart from that, it was kind of relief from work. It was kind of recharging myself for everything else that I have to do. It was kind of a de-stressing thing. Now, since lockdown, I'm a school teacher, as I think most people here know. Since lockdown, obviously, I'm on full pay. I am teaching remotely. I've gone to school a few times for lots of different reasons, and making an awful lot of phone calls a week. So for the pastoral and all that stuff, I'm working hard. Thank you very much. And I want that to be in context, because I do not want my fellow teachers to stitch me up. Okay, we're still at work, and we're working hard, and it's stressful. Thank you. In fact, we're not working from home. We're at home trying to work. No one planned this. However, if you understand what a teacher's job is, going to school is a big part of your day, and a great majority of that is nothing to do with setting lessons and marking books. It's probably like 30% of what I do is what I can now do. I've still got other things to do, like phone home and what have you, but my work has reduced. My pay has stayed the same, but the time I've got to do that work has expanded hugely. Now that means I can move that bit of creative refreshing, that thing that I used to do just to kind of keep my head straight and give me a bit of energy. That's no longer a relief. That's my main work. And what it means is I've had an extraordinary golden period. I've written about this, and I wrote about the More Than Glass thing, about it's kind of shameful that I've really enjoyed lockdown. I know how much it's affected people. I know it's a tragedy. I don't want to get political at all, but I know it's been spectacularly mismanaged by the idiots in Number 10. But anyway, and the very bravest and most vulnerable people in our society are suffering hugely for it, and it's incredibly privileged for me to say I'm having a nice time, but I am. And I've learned an incredible amount. If it wasn't for that big lump of time in one place, which I've not had since I was in my early 20s, since before I had my children, if it wasn't for that, I would not be in the place I am now with my art. I can do things this week that I couldn't do a week ago. So it's been really important for me.
That's rather amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just, I think we've got a similar way of thinking, Gareth. The actual enjoying the process and falling in love with it. Well, I think we all are. But I'm just following up on what you're saying. That I think for your own, for your own pleasure, once you fall in love with the process and not, too focused on the end result, it's just a lot more rewarding spiritually. So yeah, we all like to be rewarded financially as well, and also get feedback, lovely feedback. But there's something about looking within and finding, discovering new talents, and I think it's quite easy to get negative with all the negative things that are going around. But if you can get that opinion that actually this is a time to learn something new, spend more time with family, learn a new skill, get more. There is always a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. I mean, this is again, it's because of my perspective as a teacher, and the fact that who I look after is 16 and 17-year-old girls, and I work at a girls' school at the moment, which does make a difference. I've got to say, I would not be a 17-year-old girl 14 in China. The pressures on the young women in my care were just vast, and the pressures on them now are unbelievable. It's so difficult. It's so difficult for them, and the concerns about the future. And after all that time in school, not even saying goodbye, they just had to leave and go home. I'm not just talking about teaching here, by the way. This is about the art thing. I know the sign, because I make phone calls. I know the signs of when the girls are about to go down, and it's a graph. When do you get up in the morning? And the later you get up, the worse you are. Okay, the parents will tell you this. It's if you've got a teenager who's getting out of bed at 12 o'clock midday or 1 in the afternoon, there's a real problem there. And the reason for that is they're not engaged. You've got a choice of two in your life. You can be anesthetic, you can be aesthetic. You can be deadened to the world, you can be paralyzed, that's the anesthetic experience, or you can have the aesthetic experience, you're completely engaged. The fact those two words are clearly the same root is no coincidence. And what this has given me is I get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, I go to bed at 3, because I've got something to do. It's really helped. And this is something I've always believed, and something Sparrow's very keen on about the creativity thing. But it has absolutely proved that. This thing's therapeutic. Is another reason why more people should do it. It's really good for you. I am shutting up now, by the way.
No, you don't need to. It's fine.
Karen, do you want to say something about your experience of this time?
And how that's impacted your creative process?
So at the beginning of this time, I was really stressed because I had friends who were ill with COVID. And so on top of being locked down, I was in a daily contact with people who were sick, and it was very stressful for the first few weeks. And I actually wanted to retreat from the real world, and I refuge in VR, which I had not had access to before. But thanks to MetaGuys who loaned me a headset for a few weeks, I was able to find space to unplug and calm down and meditate. And I ended up making art in that space. And it felt really wonderful because even though we were enclosed with these walls, I could retreat to VR where space was essentially infinite, and I could make whatever I wanted, and I could immerse myself in things that made me happy. So even though I couldn't go for a walk in the woods, I could sort of make myself a campfire and a few trees and just hang out there under the stars. And it was really wonderful. So I had this experience of withdrawing really, really far. But then at the same time, I guess after that first few weeks passed, I also ended up, because of the crypto art community, ended up doing so many collaborations with you guys and with other artists that I also ended up engaging even more than I normally do for art making. And that's actually my favorite thing to do. Actually, I prefer to collaborate, and collaboration and teamwork drives me and makes me way more creative than me working on my own. So that's been really great. And I've used this time to learn all kinds of technologies I didn't even know existed before. I mean, just not because I set out to learn them, but because I was trying to solve particular problems, right? So I made a dress in VR, and I thought, oh, this would look really good on Lenara in CryptoVoxels because it's kind of her style. And so I said, oh, you know, do you think we could translate this to voxels so you can wear it? And she said, well, send me the file, the 3D file. And the name of the file, I can't even remember. And I said, like, how do I do that? So I had to look it up, and I figured it out, and I sent it to her, and she figured it out. And then it turned into this wild and crazy thing where this set of pixels got iterated into all these different kinds of artworks, and it was really fun and hilarious, actually. But yeah, it's kept me busy and kept me creative, and I think actually artistically, practice-wise, my life has completely transformed during this time because of all this. Actually, because of this space in this community.
Wow, that's really something. I mean, I know a lot of people say crypto art has changed my life. Yeah, and certainly it has for me. Sounds like it has for you. Mm-hmm. Sounds like it has for Gareth.
Oh, absolutely.
And that, you know, how often does something like that come along?
Yeah,
really.
I said it. We were interviewed yesterday by Museum of Contemporary Digital Art by Samir Tabashi, and I said the same thing. Karen's a poet and writer. I'm a poet and writer as well. Long before I did any of this stuff, I'm still not really a visual thinker, but for years, and my lifetime's earning for crypto art the last 6 months is getting on for £3,000. It's not about the money, however, the money is nice. So, you know, since December, about £3,000 lifetime's earning, and we're talking about 25 years of submitting poetry at small magazines and getting short stories published and that sort of thing. So lifetime's earnings from writing less than 230 quid. Now, the actual numbers don't matter. It's just incredibly validating when you're doing something you like doing, and rather than having to kind of force people to listen to it in the kitchen at parties and it being a bit embarrassing and quite shameful, and every now and again you might get a £5 note in the post, which is the way that it literally used to happen when you submitted to small magazines. I am that old, I can remember that. You know, putting seven poems in an envelope and sending them off with, you know, your last few pence for the stamp and hoping one of them comes back with a free magazine and a £5 note. After hours and hours of work. Compare that with me knocking out an NFT, which you know, some of them will take me a week. That's a lot of hours. Some of them will take me 20 minutes. And then getting 10 quid back, 20 quid back, 50 quid back. You're doing something that you love and you probably do anyway, and someone enjoys it enough to pay you some money. That's really significant for a lot of people. It's really significant for me. Psychically, just being told your time and your creativity is worth something, from attention and from the little bit of money you get back, enables you to go on. It validates it. It means you're not wasting your time. When you're constantly kind of battling against a brick wall and no one's interested in what you do, and it doesn't appear to be a market for it, no wonder so many people give up.
It's true, and that how easy it is to collaborate as well. I mean, that, you know, how exciting is that we're all based in the UK, yeah, so we're kind of close to each other, but we could collaborate with someone just as easily any part of the world, and you know, we can receive the benefits. We can, you know, there's a real synergy, I think, that's happening through.
Yeah. There's also the mere fact that, you know, this community is sort of small, but it's very welcoming, and everyone's kind of self-selected as being just people who, one way or another, in lots of different ways. That's one of the nice things about crypto, is it isn't a thing. It's not a movement. It's just a way of validating art, really. It's a way of putting something on the blockchain. It doesn't make a difference, the art. The art can be anything. It could be a statue with your blockchain. That's still crypto. So you've got this community of just people who make things that aren't practical, whatever the definition of art is. We're a bunch of makers who like making things. And for that reason, you're meeting lots of people who make things, and you're finding out about things that you didn't know. Ben and I have been having a conversation the last couple of days. I don't know if it's going to come to anything. That's not really the point. But we happen to be having a conversation the last couple of days just because we discovered that we both really like hip hop. And I don't know if we're going to make a video or direct something or something. He's done it in the past. But because of that interest and the fact he's got certain skills that I want to learn from, something might well happen. And there's millions of examples of that. Karen gave one just then.
One of the things I think I really like about the space is it's still quite small. So you've got all these different styles. It hasn't sort of sectioned off into different kind of disciplines and things like that. So, you know, we're all working together. Like when we were filling out the grant application and we were listing all the skills that we had between us, I think we just had like every artistic skill covered between us. You know, that was amazing. And I think you don't really get that as much in the traditional art world because it's so sectioned off and so niche. So I think that's one of the really good things about it.
Really good point there. And interesting, right? Because we didn't choose people based on their skills, right? We chose people simply based on the fact that they were artists living in England. And yet we ended up with, you know, that skill set covering all of the bases between us. I mean, yeah, that was a happy accident, I think.
I just want to add, though, we are artists in England who were willing and excited to cooperate on something and create something together. So we weren't just random artists in England, exactly.
It's like everything else, isn't it? The first thing you've got to do to achieve anything is turn up. We turned up, and here we are, and it's all happening.
One thing about the space, though, that's good is that for all the other kinds of stuff that we do, we usually have a platform for it to go. If I write an article, I tend to have a publication where it will get published. And I've been doing digital art for several years, and I've never shared it with anybody before because there was really no place to put it other than Instagram. And so to have a whole container that had its own community who were interested in experimentation and sharing ideas and work and tools and stuff was really amazing, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can dust all this stuff off and, you know, keep going, and now there's somewhere for it to go. It's like having a club where we can have a show and tell sometimes, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of dust. That was partly what my piece was about for the More Than Glass. That kind of, okay, we've now got a a different way of seeing or promoting things that we've already done. So it sent me back to old poems and old stories and old things that I'd thought of, that things that one, for example, I started kind of making settings and poems and that sort of thing. It took you back to your digital art before the crypto thing came out. I know that Sparrow's been kind of going back to things that she's done and using skills in the past. I don't know about Ben, I have to admit. But that sort of notion of what this allows you to do is what you were doing anyway, but better.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely the case with me. I think I wouldn't say I fell out of love with what I love to do, but I want to say I lost my way. I just lost. Yeah, I think having somewhere to share and to actually connect with like-minded individuals, I think I needed that, and I didn't realize how much I needed it until now. Until I actually look back and think, I needed this. I did. So yeah, it's been life-changing for me, to be honest. It really has.
Cool. So I don't know how long we can spend on this last question.
Just a small
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Someone named Avostel had a question. What can crypto art do to the art market?
Depends. It's
Depends.
yeah. So
I'll take a stab at this because I've thought about that quite a lot.
And thought about, wouldn't it be nice if, because the reason that I came to blockchain was to try and solve one of the problems with physical art, and that's tracking provenance. The more I have got involved with crypto art, the more I have come to believe that the traditional art market doesn't want its problems solved.
So it's not going to be interested. I mean, the reason that they have problems that haven't been solved for hundreds of years is because they don't want those problems solved. If they wanted them solved, they would have solved them, ages ago. So for me, I think this is the new art market. Yeah, this is not going to replace the traditional art market. It's going to exist on its own outside of the traditional art market. And the people of my daughter's generation and younger who have the term born digital, right? They've been born digital. They're used to digital goods. They're used to playing games and getting digital goods and interacting with economies, virtual economies inside virtual worlds.
It's second nature to them. When they grow up, get jobs, have disposable income, the art that they want will be digital art, and they'll want to own it just like they own items in game that are theirs, etc. So physical art's not going to go away, because obviously there is something indescribably nice, for me at least, with the physical tangible object.
And I love that, so I'm still going to continue to make physical art. But I think that the younger generation
will drive demand for digital goods
of all sorts, and art will be one of them. And it will be a market that is separate
from the traditional art market. The real question is, what will institutions do? What will the museums and funding organizations like Arts Council England
do with these two different things? Are they going to completely ignore
one and stick with
probably a decreased and decreasing